All right, welcome everybody. We're going to get started tonight. We're going to be talking about some new science and technology in the world of aging, cell damage, sickness, and in health. So let's just jump right into this. My name is Dr. Joshua Dunsky. I am a chiropractic physician, and I practice just outside of Boston in Framingham, Massachusetts. And I'm going to be talking to you tonight about some cutting-edge science that has changed the way I practice and has changed what I think is what we know as healthcare today. I want to start off this presentation by telling you about telomeres. Now, telomeres are a major reason as to our aging process and are major in the relationship to our health and overall wellness, and we're going to get into that. So what I want you to understand before we start here is that bad things happen when our telomeres get short. We want long telomeres. I'm going to start off by showing you a picture of these guys. These are lobsters, and according to researchers, lobsters have no detectable aging process. So why is it that certain species can live for an extended period of time? The tortoise can live over 280 years. Certain species of mussels can live over 400 years. Other species of fish and whale for an extended period of time. What makes them different from our cat, dog, or humans? Now, we've come to believe and understand that every cell in our body has a specific role. We're made up of over 100 trillion cells in our body. And each one of those cells has a purpose, it ages, and then it dies, and new cells are born. That holds true for every cell in our body except in the reproductive system. Reproductive cells do not age. They are immortal. And that is the reason we can pass on our genes from generation to generation. That's responsible for the sperm and the egg. They're specialized cells. So why is this important? Well, the human body, as I said, is made up of over 100 trillion cells that carry on functions every single day that no one thinks about. Your liver's working, your kidneys working, your brain is working, your blood pressure, your heart's regulating. We're not thinking about that. It's just happening. In every one of those cells, we have this circle, if you will, called the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, we have these blue X's. And these blue X's are what's called chromosomes. And chromosomes house our DNA. That double helix is our genetic blueprint, basically. You can't build a house without a blueprint. Well, your body would never exist without this genetic coding that tells us what color our hair is going to be, how tall we're going to be, how we're going to respond to different situations, the intelligence that connects the brain to the rest of the body. It's our coding and our map for life. And inside the chromosome are the DNA, and at the very tips of the DNA and the very tips of the chromosomes are these yellow caps here. And these yellow caps are called telomeres. Now, why are they important? Well, I want you to imagine a shoestring, the plastic tip to a shoestring. If that plastic tip starts to reduce or get smaller and smaller, what happens to the shoestring? The shoestring starts to fray at the end. And that holds true for the telomere. The problem is, as our cells divide, as we get older, our telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter. So what happens if that plastic tip reduces way down to where there's almost no plastic left? That shoestring completely unravels. And that's what happens to the chromosome. It's called chromosomal rearrangement. And that's where a lot of neoplasms and cancers come from. There's disorganization, and that's literally when we die. So at conception, the telomere, they measure it in bases. At conception, the telomere is 15,000 bases long. But as soon as the baby's born, that telomere shrinks down or reduces down to 10,000 bases long. And why that is important is because when the telomere reaches 5,000 bases long, we die. It's called cell senescence. That's when the cell actually dies. This has been directly correlated to the aging process. This is why we age. This is why a 50-year-old man has 50-year-old skin and very different from a 7-year-old boy. Or a 40-year-old has different hair and you know, versus a 4-year-old or a 13-year-old. We can identify people somewhat of their age by certain characteristics, and many of those characteristics we're going to put up here in a second. But what I want you to understand is this is the cell cycle. This is literally the basic unit of life. Picture this as a clock. We have 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. As this cell begins its life, it carries out a certain function. If it's an eyeball, it does eyeball things. If it's a knee, it does knee things. And if it's a liver, it does liver things. And around 6:30, 7 o'clock, that cell knows it's going to die. So the cell has this amazing intelligence, as our bodies do, and it says, I need to mirror and copy my DNA because I'm going to die soon, and I want my host to live on. So what happens is the DNA copies itself. Around 10:30, 11 o'clock, the cell dies, and the new cell is born and carries out that liver function. Around 6:30, 7 o'clock again, the DNA replicates, the old cell goes off into cell waste, cell division happens, and the new cell carries out life. Every time the cell goes around the cell cycle, that chromosome is slightly inferior at the tip, at the telomere. So remember, the baby's born, the telomere is already 10,000 bases long. And this happens throughout life. And when that telomere gets to 5,000 bases long, our life is over. Scientists, actually the Russians discovered the telomeres back in the 50s. In the past 20 years or so, scientists have discovered that telomeres getting shorter causes or is directly correlated with us having aging, and having all of the aging characteristics that you think of: loss of hearing, muscle atrophy, wrinkles, gray hair, and more recently, degenerative issues and diseases. And there's a gentleman who I'm going to introduce you to. He's probably one of, if not the leading researcher on aging. His name is Dr. William Andrews, this gentleman. And he thinks that every disease out there, or he'll tell you, he doesn't know any disease that's not linked to telomere shortening. Okay? Popular Science named him the man that would stop time for his contribution to science in 2011. His contribution was this. Bill Andrews discovered human telomerase in 1994, and that was a big deal, which you're going to find out in a second. For this discovery, he placed first place in the United States Inventor of the Year Award in 1997. It was the same year that the HIV protease came out. Okay, so they actually tied for first place, and they gave him second place. They've never issued a second place before for Inventor of the Year, but the HIV protease is a pretty big deal. And what happened was, he's been a biologist for over 22 years. He's been in biotech for over 35 years. He is the president, founder, and CEO of the only lab in the world that solely studies the aging process. That's all they do. So he's absolutely one of the leading authorities. Telomerase is the reason why when a 40-year-old woman or a 30-year-old woman has a baby, right? And if the 30-year-old woman, if her cells copy themselves identically, that baby should have 30-year-old skin, 30-year-old hair, 30-year-old eyes. But that's kind of silly to think of. But literally, that's what would happen with the absence of telomerase. Telomerase is responsible for allowing us to give birth, allowing our babies to look like babies. There's no telomere shortening in the reproductive system. They do not age. This is why reproductive cells are immortal. So essentially what happens is when the cell goes around the circle of life here, and it copies itself, and the old cell goes off and the new cell is born, normally there's telomere shortening. In the reproductive system, with telomerase, there's no telomere shortening. The telomeres stayed exactly the same length. This was huge for medicine, research, and science, okay, for all of the possible implications that this has now. And this has been all over the news. You heard about it, but you were probably doing the dishes, playing with the kids. It was on TV in the background. It's been all over the news. MSNBC, Today Show, the doctors frequently talk about it. CSI solved a whole murder mystery based on this science that I told you about, Elle Magazine, etc. It's all over the place. But short telomere disease is more than just aging. And this is what I had the privilege of presenting at the World Anti-Aging Conference, Preventative Medicine Conference last year in London. I presented this science that we're talking about today because of the implications on not just aging but our health. And there's no better example of children born with short telomeres than this awful disease called progeria. Progeria is a short telomere disease. Okay, I told you we can correlate the aging process with short telomeres. Well, this is what happened. These kids are born with short telomeres. They suffer from all the same age-related illnesses as the elderly do. It's horrible. They have horrible osteoarthritis, spinal stenosis, and they eventually die from congestive heart failure and heart attacks and strokes at 10 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old. It's a horrible, horrible disease. And preventing telomere shortening could possibly cure these kids. Powerful. And we all suffer from this disease or condition to some extent. In fact, I told you before, Dr. Andrews doesn't know any disease out there that's not linked to telomere shortening. And 15, 20 years ago, there was a few papers written on diseases and short telomeres. There are thousands of papers, reports, publications now correlating cardiovascular disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases, and AIDS, and all of these horrible diseases to short telomeres. Cancer, we all get cancer 8 times, 10 times a day. If your immune system is working properly, the immune system destroys those cancer cells and we stay healthy. When the immune system is out of sync, or there's other reasons too, if the immune system doesn't have its power, it can't combat and can't destroy those cancer cells, we get sick. Alzheimer's, dementia, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, everybody, all those organizations, they're all looking at telomeres. The relationship is just so powerful, and every day it seems that there's more and more science that comes out supporting this. AIDS patients, why do AIDS patients die? AIDS patients die because a major part of their immune system, we have something called T cells in our immune system, and T cells basically fight off bacteria and viruses that make us sick. In AIDS patients, when they die, their telomeres inside their T cells have shrunk down to 5,000 bases long. Those T cells can't fight off the common cold. These people, you and I would sniffle for a few days and we'd be better. These people die from that because the fuel, I look at the telomere as kind of like the fuel in the cell, is down to a level where the cell can't perform its function. The Journal of American Medical Association said in 2010 that short telomeres increase the risk of cancer 4 to 5-fold. So bad things really do happen when our telomeres get short. But is there actually something we can do about it? Well, let me back up for a second. I told you before, when the cell goes around the cell cycle and our telomeres get short, that's the natural process that Mother Nature designed for us. That's called basal cell shortening. The problem is there's something called accelerated shortening, and that is due to choices that we make or environments that we are in. And so these categories up here, excuse me, have all been published. They're all in journals and scientific journals and whatnot. And they've been correlated with either accelerated shortening or longer telomeres. So they took the older population and they exercised them compared to the older population that didn't exercise. They took the population that took antioxidants, omega-3s, and vitamin D3 versus the older population that didn't. All of these have been correlated with longer telomeres if you do those things, if you exercise and take vitamin D3. If you smoke, the older population that smoked versus the older population that didn't, the ones that smoked had rapidly declined or accelerated telomere shortening. A healthy weight has implications. They studied the stress level of caregivers to Alzheimer's patients. They were all shown to have shorter telomeres. They studied 4 major mood disorders published in Journal of Immunology and Psychiatry. They all had shorter telomeres. Okay? And negative people, it's been proven that pessimism shows to have longer telomeres in people that are negative all the time. The American Journal of Public Health, and they found out that a daily soda habit can age your immune system by almost 2 years, related and linked to telomere length. But do you actually think it's possible, okay, to reverse the aging process? So when I say anti-aging, I ask a room of people, I say, what do you think of when you hear anti-aging? People say eye cream, Botox, all of those things. And yes, that's true to some extent. But I'm talking about reversing, really reversing the aging process. And when my parents were little, there was a cartoon, Buck Rogers, who used to get in a spaceship and fly up in space and fly to the moon. And that was all fiction. They said, we'll never be in a spaceship, we'll certainly never fly in space, and certainly no one's ever gone to the moon. But guess what we are today? This is where science has brought us today. This is why this is cutting-edge science and has implications on almost every level regarding our health, because we can do it now. I showed you a picture of these guys before, because according to researchers, they have no detectable aging process. Well, guess what else they found? Lobsters express telomerase in every cell throughout life. Humans stop expressing telomerase after we're born. We still have the telomerase gene, but it's shut off at birth. Lobsters express it throughout life. Guess what else they found? Lobsters don't get cancer. When researchers discovered this, they went nuts. They said, wait a second, they express telomerase in every cell throughout life. There's no detectable aging process, and they don't get cancer. There has to be some common denominator here. There has to be some link. And they went to work. And now almost every research organization, pharmaceutical organization, went to work to correlate this because of the possible implications with medications, drugs, and our health. So in walks this gentleman, Dr. Ronald Del Pino, another name that you just don't know you know him because he's been all over the news. He used to be on staff at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, used to be on staff at Harvard Medical School, and now runs one of the largest teaching cancer hospitals in the world at MD Anderson in Texas. He's one of the leading authorities on cancer research by far. He was a big skeptic of what was happening. Everybody was trying to jump on the bandwagon and say, look, we have to try to induce telomerase because we may be able to cure some diseases or live longer or live healthier. And he said, wait a second, we could be screwing around with Mother Nature. You could be inducing cancer by inducing telomerase. So he designed a study to prove that if you try to elongate telomeres with chemicals, drugs, whatever it is, and induce telomerase, you could cause cancer. They took old mice, they engineered them, they created a switch, which was incredible in and of itself. They created a switch, and they literally flicked the switch, induced telomerase, and lengthened telomeres in old mice. And for the first time, printed with science behind it. Okay? I get chills every time I say this. It was the first time that someone has been able to say there was a remarkable reversal of the aging process with good science behind it. That's been duplicated throughout now. Other labs and other researchers have tried to duplicate this to get different results. They all get the same results. Okay? I want you to listen to something.
And now, eternal youth. Is it in a cage around the corner? News tonight of a breakthrough for some pioneering mice. But we always wonder, what does a fountain of youth for rodents reveal for humans? Here's Sharon Alfonsi reporting.
I feel tremendous.
In the movie Cocoon, it's a swimming pool that turns back the clock for a group of senior citizens. But now, researchers have found a way not just to stop, but reverse the aging process. The key is something called a telomere. We all have them. They're the tips or caps of your chromosome, seen here in yellow. This is what it looks like in a young adult. But as you grow older, the telomeres become damaged and frayed, and as they stop working, we start aging, experiencing things like hearing and memory loss. Scientists took mice who were prematurely aged, added an enzyme, and essentially turned their telomeres back on. You can see it before the enzyme, after.
Their brain function improved, their fertility was restored. It was a remarkable reversal of the aging process.
Look at this picture. The mouse on the right has bad skin, gray hair, and is balding, but the one on the left had its telomeres flipped back on.
And you can see that essentially you now have a dark coat color, that the hair is restored, that the coat has a nice healthy sheen to it.
Even more dramatic, the change in brain size. This is before. The mice had 75% of a normal brain, like a patient with severe Alzheimer's. But after the telomeres were reactivated, the brain returns to normal size. As for
33% increase in telomere lengths after they turned them back on. The restoration of fertility was seen, spleen size. These old mice that were confused and had dementia and Alzheimer's-like symptoms that couldn't get out of the maze were all getting out of the maze. And there was a threefold increase in their survival rate after 25 weeks. There was another leading researcher over in Madrid, Spain, in cancer research. She tried to prove the same study would induce cancer, and the same results came out. In fact, she found that there was actually an increase in survival in her study beyond the 25 weeks. Powerful. So that is what they actually did on every morphology by every morphology that they measured these cells, every parameter, they all were basically de-aged. And even though it happened with chemicals, and even though it happened with mice, it still happened for the first time. Everything starts somewhere. So this is where we get into the science meets wellness. And this is the powerful part. This is kind of like the pinnacle of this presentation for this first part. I told you about Dr. William Andrews, discovered human telomerase. He's the science guy. This is where he was connected to a gentleman named John Anderson through another gentleman named Peter Greenlaw. And that was the spawning of some amazing things that came to fruition here. Let me tell you about John Anderson, another remarkable human being. He is a master formulator. Those people in the nutritional industry and nutraceutical industry regard him as the mineral man. There's I think, no one else with more of a brilliant mind in formulating natural compounds that get a job done. He's been formulating for over 3 decades, for over 600 companies, for over 25 different nutritional products that are still on the shelves today. And he did this for 3 decades. He actually went into retirement because, you know, he believed in doing things the right way and using pure, authentic botanicals and phytonutrients. But because the nutraceutical industry is a big industry and it's mainly about making money for a lot of those companies, he had to sacrifice and use some subpar ingredients and some other fillers and chemicals, synthetic chemicals, and things he didn't agree with. So he actually went into retirement. In 2002, he came out of retirement. He started a very large health and wellness company to only have the purest absorbable phytonutrients, botanicals for people to consume to get well with. And in fact, he was held in such high regards that the United States government put him to a test, and they actually gave him the task of creating the nutritional program for the United States military. He and 2 of his partners, Kathy and Jim Coover, were awarded the United States Congressional Award. The United States Congress has never given an award to a health and wellness or a nutraceutical company ever before. And they gave it to him. Why? Because they were doing everything the right way, with their vision being only give people what is absolutely healthy for them and not giving them anything that's anything but. So these 2 were connected. And what happened was beautiful. They went to work. Bill Andrews, for 25 years, the only lab in the world that's been studying the aging process, has been studying these chemicals to try to reverse aging. And he studied over 304 and evaluated over 304,000 chemical and natural compounds and ingredients to try to get these red lines. These red lines are called positive control hits. That means they actually induce telomerase and lengthen telomeres. Okay, and they actually did it for the first time in the lab. They identified 39 families of these chemicals that actually turn on the telomerase gene and elongate telomeres. But again, in vitro means in a dish. They did it in a dish, but they did it for the first time. They actually proved that it was possible to do that. And yes, they were with chemicals, but again, everything starts somewhere. And what happened was, when he was introduced to John Anderson, they went to work. And they said, we are going to do this organically and naturally. And people said, there's no way you're going to do it. There's no way you're going to do it. He would send Bill 80 to 100 vials of symbiotically, synergistically blended botanicals, phytonutrients, all 100% from Mother Nature ingredients to try to get these hits. And they would test and test and test every single day, every single week. And they did this for years. And what happened was, eventually, they spawned 30 plus all natural, 100% natural compounds that actually, for the first time, got 3 hits. Now, they weren't as strong. As you can see, they're not as long, or the hits weren't as powerful, but they still did it. Again, every step during this process is another feat, another feat. They did it for the first time. And then they had 4 more hits that you can see is a little stronger. And then more recently, they had 16 hits that blew the chemical control out of the water. This is what they never expected to see. John knew he could do this eventually, but most of the other scientists they were working with really were not too optimistic about this happening. They did it. And now we're on 4th generation of a nutraceutical, a natural, 100% natural supplement that is called Product B, or 4th generation Product B, called Isogenesis. That is basically our youthful aging in a bottle, is what I'm going to call it. Now, we need to stop right here for 1 second. I want to be very clear about something. Isogenics is not a drug. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, prevent any illness or disease. This is for training purposes only, and these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. The FDA does not endorse any nutritional product or any nutraceutical. They get involved when someone makes a false claim or someone is injured. And according to the FDA, they say that only doctors and drugs can cure diseases, and natural ingredients can't. And regardless what you and I think, we're not here to take on the FDA. It doesn't matter what we think. We have to be compliant. When people are not compliant, companies get in trouble and products disappear. We don't want that to happen. So we want to be very careful as to what we say. What I can say is that Product B is an all-natural supplement. It's not a drug. We can't say that it reverses aging. We can't say that it elongates telomeres. What we can say is that it's 100% telomere support, and it provides youthful aging. In my opinion, I've been practicing for 15 years, and I've been using high-quality, good science-based nutrition for 15 years. I have never seen anything on the market to this day that can do what this does. I see people getting healthy all around me, more prevalent and more drastically than I've ever seen before. Powerful. What we can say is that Product B has now been proven through a randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind clinical trial to increase catalysts by 30% in live subjects. Catalyst has been correlated with longevity in cells. If you have more catalysts, you have more longevity, more health in the cell. They did this with live people now. For a long time, we had in vitro study, which means in a dish, which is still great, but now in live people. Powerful. Dr. Robert Watine, a board-certified internal medicine doc, has put over 400 of his patients on Product B. He was a big skeptic at first, as most healthcare practitioners and medical doctors are, as we should be. He went on the product. It changed his health and the things that he saw within himself that he could not bring it on board for his patients. And he says he saw improvement in the quality of life throughout and across the board with all of his patients. And he says he only changed one thing. He only gave them this. He didn't change their exercise. He didn't change their sleep, etc. This is big, and I want to just call attention to the company for a second because integrity is everything to me and the people that we work with. Isagenix has been given Company of the Year for 2 years now by the American Business Awards. The American Business Awards are like what the Oscars are to the movie industry. They've given other companies like Aflac, Procter & Gamble, American Express, Company of the Year out of every company, okay, for their infrastructure and impact on society. This is what Isagenix has achieved. They've given them the same awards to them for 2 years. That is huge. That is the level that they're playing at. This is big, big. And they've received several awards for their technology and the science that they've found throughout this process. They've also been called by Inc. magazine one of the fastest growing companies for the past 7 years. So we're going to switch gears here pretty quick, and we're going to get into the state of health that we live in. And everybody knows that the United States has some of the healthiest people in the world, right? Well, no, that's not right. It's far from it. In fact, we're one of the sickest countries in the world. We spend the most amount on healthcare, and we're one of the sickest countries in the world. Why is that? What's going on here? Well, back in 2008, 1 in 4 children had some type of chronic illness. And today, 1 in 2 kids have some type of chronic illness that's plaguing them. This is not okay. Something is happening. We are getting sicker and sicker. And for the first time ever, our children are expected to have shorter lifespans than us. Whoa. When I heard that really made me stop and think. We need to do something. We need to figure out what's going on. The obesity crisis in the United States is getting worse and worse and worse. We were the number 1 obese country in the world until last year. Okay? Mexico just surpassed us. So we're number 2 now. Okay? With 23 million children that are obese. Cancer, 1 in 2 people over the age of 55 will develop cancer now. Back in the 50s, it was 1 in 12. We are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. The future says that 42% of Americans will be obese by 2030. 100 million Americans will have diabetes by 2050. And we know Medicare is going to be broke by 2026. So who's going to pay for us to be sick? Is that weight going on to our children's shoulders? But obesity is not the only problem. Okay? I want to talk to you about metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is where 75% of all of our healthcare dollars are spent. That's the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's where our dollars are going. That's what is killing and making us so sick. But is obesity an actual choice? Is it the gluttony and the sloth? Is the person laying on the couch too much, not exercising, and eating Doritos and Coke all day long? Well, maybe they are, but is it a choice? Well, if your hypothesis is that it's a choice and it's their fault and their problem, then you have to be able to explain why we right now, to this day, we have an epidemic of obese 6-month-old children. An epidemic of 6-year-old obese children. What's going on there? You can't sit there and tell me they're not exercising enough. No. Something is inherently going wrong. Are we eating more now than 20 years ago? Absolutely. Absolutely. No question we are. But is there actually more food available? No, there's no more food. We're supersizing everything because there's a demand for it, but why is there a demand for more food than 20 years ago? Well, let's talk about this first. In 1982, something profound happened. the American Heart Association, the American Medical Association, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture said, we are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. We need to reduce our fat consumption. So they admonished us to reduce our fat from 40 to 30%. Guess what happened to metabolic disease, right? It's all going to go down now. We're all going to get healthy. Wrong. It not only increased, it significantly increased. Why? Because it was never the fat. The fat is not the problem. What is the problem? It's the sugar. It's the refined carbohydrates. Now, when I say carbohydrates, I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about complex carbohydrates, the good carbohydrates that come from fruits and vegetables. I'm talking about the simple sugars, the bread, the flour, the pastas, okay? The refined sugars are destroying our health on the inside, the physiology, the good hormonal levels in our body, okay? When in our anthropological days, when we walked around and we grabbed fresh fruit from the earth and fresh vegetables from the earth, we were getting the good sugar. I'm not talking about bad sugar now. I'm talking about good sugar. There's good sugar. In fact, naturally occurring fructose actually has been shown to level out our blood sugar. It helps with glucose levels. A lot of people don't know that. They want to run from sugar. There's nothing wrong with good sugar as long as you get it in the right amounts and as long as you get it in the right quality. Okay? We used to consume about 15 grams of sugar a day. And guess what? Our liver likes that. Our liver could process that fructose, and it could create these good, healthy levels of all these other chemical processes going on in our body. Great. The problem is when you inundate the liver, or you don't stop eating, or you supersize everything, or you get refined sugar, okay, our liver doesn't know what to do with it, and it malfunctions. Okay? We're not going to get into the Krebs cycle and biochemistry too much in this presentation, but trust me, bad things happen, and I can show you this at some other point. Adolescents today consume almost 73 grams a day of fructose and sugar, where our bodies are happy with 15 grams. So is something going on? Absolutely. This is an unmitigated disaster. The fat's going down, the sugar's going up, and we're all getting sick, says Dr. Lustig. He is an expert and a leading authority on endocrinology and metabolism. Okay, that's why we're doing this. That's why I get to work with a team of people that travels around the United States and now the globe in 14 countries, presenting information to educate people to make a change. Because we know we can't listen to the magazines, we can't listen to TV, we certainly can't listen to the food industry. We have to educate ourselves. Okay, leptin. Why are we eating so much? Well, leptin is a part of our negative feedback system. Leptin says, Joshua, you just ate a healthy meal, stop eating. And we stop eating. We get satiated. But when you consume NutraSweet, aspartame, synthetic chemicals, sucralose, Splenda, and you consume synthetic chemicals in food to preserve them, food preservatives, and dyes, and excitatory chemicals that says, wow, this McDonald's French fry tastes awesome. It really doesn't. It's a chemical that's tricking your brain. Just like crack cocaine, heroin, psychotropic drugs, make your brain see something that's not there, or make your brain addicted to something that's not there. Okay? That's why it bypasses the negative feedback system and has strong implications over insulin levels too and our glucose levels. We are messing up on every level that's out there. The beverage intake is no better. Beverages, we're having some audio problems. I'm sorry, people. Hang tight for a second. They can't hear at all? All right, sorry for those of you who can hear. We're going to try to fix this audio problem. I'm going to unmute. Let's see who's on here. Testing, testing. Testing. Deb Stevens. Deb Stevens, can you hear me? Hold on, guys. Let's see. Wendy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you hear me the whole time?
Yeah.
Oh, Wendy says she can hear me the whole time. Who is on the phone? Let me unmute a couple other people. Thomas, Can Thomas hear me okay?
Yep, absolutely.
You heard the whole
Presentation,
presentation?
thanks. Yep.
Oh, great.
Well,
Okay.
most of it. I've been interrupted a couple of times, but your job is you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Lisa, they can all hear. So, all right. Sorry, guys. Thank you, Thomas and Wendy. I'm sorry for this. We got some, someone was identifying that they couldn't hear, so we're going to keep going. Beverage intake. Beverage intake is up 41%, okay? And this is really what gets under my skin, and I'm not blaming parents. I'm blaming mostly the media. These fruit juices, okay? Many of these fruit juices that look like a healthy product are worse than soda. And we're dumping it in our kids' bodies at a high rate. And most parents are trying to do the right thing, but they're getting misinformation. Some are ignorant, some don't want to look, and I get that. But most, I have to believe, are trying to do the right thing, okay? We've got to educate that these fruit juices are no better than these sodas, for most of them. Now, when I show you this slide here, this equation, I want you to understand that 1 can of soda a day equals 15 pounds of fat per year, bad fat. There's good fat and there's bad fat. I'm only talking about bad fat right now, visceral fat that kills us. It creates coronary artery disease, congestive heart failure, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And in another presentation I do, I actually show the Krebs cycle and what the liver does when you consume this much sugar. It has adverse, horrible, detrimental adverse reactions. The Coca-Cola conspiracy, let me just tell you this and cut to the chase on this one. This is a 20 ounce over here. This was started in 1992, this bottle, okay? We started back in 1915 with a 6.5 ounce bottle of Coke. If you drank one of those a day, you gained 8 pounds of fat per year. I'm not even going to talk about this disgusting Thirst Buster over here in 1988. They supersized everything. But this bottle right here is very troubling. Not that the Thirst Buster isn't, but in 1992, they changed the serving size to 20 ounces. If you drank one of those a day, you're going to gain 26 pounds of bad fat per year. There are many of us on this phone call right now that know adolescents, children, and adults that drink not only 1 but 2 a day. Let me tell you something. This is one of the most poisonous products. Poison, and I'm not belittling that or minimizing the word poison, at all, that we have around us that is absolutely making us sick. And what Coca-Cola did was something brilliant, okay? This is what Philip Morris and the tobacco industry did. What do they put in Coke? Besides all the horrible chemicals, one of the ones is caffeine. Why do they put caffeine in Coke? Because it's a stimulant. Who's not exhausted every day? Who's not tired? Going home and helping, dealing with the kids, and you got to go to work, and you have projects and your deadlines, and you can't sleep, and you got to get up for this. Everybody's exhausted. So you need a stimulant to keep you going. Caffeine's also a diuretic, which means you pee free water. It dehydrates you. What's another major component of Coke? Salt. 55 milligrams to be exact. What does salt do? It dehydrates you. Why do they want to do that? Well, we're all intelligent. We know why. Okay? If they can keep you awake and dehydrate you and make you thirsty, you're going to drink more and more and more. Why do they put nicotine in cigarettes? Okay? They're brilliant. It's a brilliant marketing campaign, and to the core of their business, it's going to drive sales through the roof, and that's what they did. And last, why do they put sugar in Coke? Because you'd never drink it if they didn't. It's to hide the salt. And in 1985, they got even smarter with business. They said, we need to capture more people, get more people hooked and addicted. So in 1985, they came out with New Coke. And what is New Coke? It was the first time they changed the formula. And they changed the formula by adding more salt and more caffeine. Got more people hooked because more people were thirsty and more people were staying awake longer. They were brilliant. This, again, was the nicotine in the cigarette. They made hundreds of billions of dollars on this new model. Okay? And for the next part of this conversation here, I want to be the first one to tell you that I think we need to get our nutrition from our food. The problem is it stuck again?
Why is diet soda so bad for you?
Diet soda? Oh, we got a question that came up. Why is diet soda so bad for us? Diet soda, well, I'd rather you drink regular soda than diet soda, first of all. The chemicals in the artificial sugars, okay, the artificial sweeteners are they're even worse. They're synthetic chemicals that cause horrible adverse reactions to our glucose levels, to our insulin levels, to the negative feedback system in our body, okay? There are many of those types of chemicals. Actually, people think they're going to lose weight. There's been studies to show that you can actually gain 7 to 12 pounds more on diet sodas. Those chemicals are killing us. They're chemicals that go to parts of our brain called the hippocampus where our memory cells are that destroy those cells. And yet the food industry gets away and the soda industry gets away with putting it in their products. Those are synthetic, damaging chemicals. When I say the word chemical, there are good chemicals. Your body makes good chemicals. I'm talking about synthetic, bad chemicals that cause adverse reactions. Those chemicals damage the liver. The liver doesn't know what to do with them. So these horrible processes, instead of metabolizing the good sugar, these horrible processes start to happen with those chemicals, and that yields everything that, or many of what you saw in metabolic disease. The United States Department of Agriculture says, and has shown us many times over, that our soils are nutritionally bankrupt. The herbicides, the pesticides, the over-farming has destroyed the nutritional value in the soil. Okay? So if we know we need to eat the spinach or the cauliflower because we have to get our minerals and our nutrition, but there's no minerals in the soil, so it's not going to the spinach or the cauliflower, how are we getting it? We're not. Like I said before, I'm the first one to say if we got it from the food, we wouldn't need to supplement. But if people still want to turn a blind eye and say, all I need is to eat well, then great. If this presentation is not about convincing, it's about educating. You get to decide what you do. That what's not okay is not educating, not telling people what is real and what we really can see based on meta-analysis now, big analysis of what the facts are. Your body needs 90 essential nutrients that it doesn't make, okay? It needs it for every day for survival, for proper health. We need 60 minerals a day for proper neurological and cognitive function. We don't get that. You need to get it somehow. I have the pleasure, well, I shouldn't say pleasure, but I have the opportunity to sit across from patients every day or at least every week that come in that eat organically, they exercise, and they're so sick. They feel horrible. They have no energy. And then we do lab tests. We do blood. We do some internal testing, 24-hour urinalysis and gut testing where we can see how sick people are. They're not absorbing the nutrients. Why? Because the nutrients aren't in the food. The toxins are getting into us through the environment, and we're not getting healthy. We're getting sicker and sicker through malnourishment. C. Everett Koop, ex-Surgeon General of the United States, served under Ronald Reagan, was a highly decorated pediatric surgeon. He felt that over 70% of all of our diseases were due to lack of were due to nutritional deficiencies. Over 70% of the diseases we know. I think that number, I think he would say today, he would be convinced that it was probably way higher than that. UCLA started a study back in 1953. In 1953, they found that one bowl of spinach had enough iron to last the average person 1 week. You ate a bowl of spinach, you got 1 week's supply of iron. Everybody now think about how many bowls you need for 1 week's supply of iron. And I'm not going to wait till this slide gives out here. I'm going to fast forward. We need today 54 bowls of spinach to get 1 week's supply of iron. So you can't sit there in front of me and say that you eat well and you're going to get healthy eating well. Good luck, and if it happens, great. But I'm telling you, this doesn't happen anymore. We need somehow to supplement good supplements, and we need to clean out the system in order to absorb those supplements. Let me show you this pH chart here. When I say low pH, I mean high acid. When I say high pH, I mean alkalinity. Your body wants to be at something called homeostasis. That's about 7.25. Homeostasis means every hormone and good chemical in your system, excuse me, and good process in your system and all the good enzymes, they're all working in harmony to keep you healthy. When you're in homeostasis, you're healthy. And things that we do every single day, like drink coffee, coffee is a 2.5 on the acid scale. You become very acidic. Your body wants to be up here. So how does your body right itself? Your body goes into the bones and it pulls calcium bicarbonate out of the bones to buffer your blood and buffer your system to bring that pH back up. Great. Now you drink a soda and you become really acidic. Your body has to go back into the bones, pull calcium out of the bones to buffer the blood, and get your body back up to this alkaline state. And now you're eating food with preservatives and synthetic chemicals. And don't be fooled when it says natural food flavors or artificial flavors or natural food this or natural food that. They're not natural foods. They get away with saying, most of them, not all of them, but most, are chemicals that are under a certain ratio or under a certain parts per billion, and they're allowed to call it natural. And it's a disgrace, and it's awful, okay? And many of the chronic illnesses and states and diseases that we're faced with today happen in a high acidic environment. If your body becomes too acidic, we die. So your body always has to regulate itself. When you walk by someone smoking a cigarette, even if you're 10 feet away from them, but you even smell that smoke for a second, your blood and body becomes very acidic. And your body knows that if it becomes too acidic, it can become septic and you can die. So the body goes into the bones and it pulls that calcium out. Every day, all day, we are leaching calcium at an accelerated rate to keep us at homeostasis. Has anybody on here heard of osteopenia or osteoporosis? It is a horrible disease, and people think, oh, it's just older women that get it. Well, no, it's not. We're seeing women in the late 20s showing values of osteopenic values and osteoporotic values. Okay? This is a bone demineralization disease. We are breaking down or losing more bone than we can build back up. And this causes hip fractures and other breaks. In mortality rate, deaths go up through the roof when you break a hip. Because when you break a hip or a bone in the older population or the younger population, you can't exercise. But in the older population, if you can't exercise, you stop building lean muscle mass, or you have less lean muscle mass to produce a hormone called glutathione that is a major contributor to your immune system. So your immune system gets weak because you can't exercise. So the basis is do something to make you healthy. Do things to make you healthy and stay away from this osteoporosis. Well, how do you do it? Because the media says drink your milk. And that's another farce. That's another marketing ploy. You know, is there calcium in milk? Sure. Is it important? Sure. And mineral and magnesium is important, and all those wonderful things are important. But you don't get a lot of good calcium from milk, as we're led to believe. And how we know this best is that the primitive Chinese and Japanese culture consumed no dairy products at all. They didn't drink their milk a day. Guess what the rate of osteoporosis was? 0. They had none, because they got good nutrition from the earth and from the sea and from animals and whatnot. That was untainted, and they didn't have the toxicity, okay? But we do things on a regular basis, okay? And back to that diet soda question, why is diet soda bad for you? NutraSweet, aspartame, aspartic acid, phenylalanine, there's methanol. By the way, methanol turns to formic acid or formaldehyde if you heat it up over 86 degrees, and that's exactly what's in aspartame. So chemical by chemical, it denatures and pulls calcium out of our bones all day long. Makes us very, very sick. And this is the state of health that we're here right here. And it makes me very, very sad every time I show this picture. These boys don't have a chance. They probably have, this kid's probably already type 2 diabetic. He probably already has some type of atherosclerosis or plaquing. He probably has high cholesterol, blood pressure, you name it. This is what we're doing because of greed. And let me tell you about greed. Okay, we are destroying our planet because of greed in fast food. McDonald's happens to be one of the largest toy distributors in the world. And you heard me correctly. That, my friend, should be illegal. Those people should go to jail. Okay? Brainwashing our kids to go in and eat food that is killing us. Horrible. You know, back in the day when our air was clean, we got healthy from breathing. When our water was clean, we got healthy from drinking. And our food had the minerals and nutrition and proteins and amino acids that we needed. You know, and our poison was okay because our poison was locked up under the kitchen sink where little Johnny couldn't get at it, and we all stayed safe. But that's not true. Okay, there's poisons all around us. In fact, we all have over 167 deadly toxins poison in our cells. And since World War II, there have been over 80,000 new industrial chemicals that you and I breathe every single day. They sprayed all over our food. We are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. CNN did a study, and they took the umbilical tissue of beautiful newborn baby girls and newborn baby boys, and they found that in every single one of them, they had over 250 industrial chemicals inside their bodies at birth. Our children are being born with the chips against them, the cards against them, okay? And this isn't right, and this isn't what was supposed to happen. Do you think this could be some of the reasons for all the miscarriages? Do you think this could be some of the reasons for some of the mental retardation or the diseases or the learning disabilities? I'm not saying it's all the reason, but one chemical can kill you. We know that there are chemicals that are poison enough to kill you. You're talking about 250 of them in each one of us at birth. So if there are people out there that still want to say that you don't need to supplement, that's okay. Truly it is. What we need to do is just educate and let people decide for themselves. Okay? But the supplement industry is no different. People are confused in a horrible way because any Tom, Dick, and Harry can open up their own supplement company. They can take out big, beautiful, sexy ads of men and women and say, use our protein if you want to look like this. Use our fish oil if you want to look like this. Use our vitamin D3. It's the best in the market with no meat to substantiate what they're saying. And that's why I look at science all day long, every day. That's why for 15 years I've been looking at science, and I found something that until I find something better, there's no one even in second place to the program that we use, which I'm going to tell you about in a second. But the LA Times did a study or a project on their own a couple years ago. They took 23 of the most common supplements off the shelves from all the major supplement companies, all the major supplement stores, I should say, the GNCs, the Vitamin Shoppe, the Costco, the CVS, everyone. And they found that only 3 of them actually had in the pill what was on the label. Only 3. So how do you know what you're getting? You don't. You have to do your research. Don't do it because I'm telling you to do it. Don't do it because your doctor says it's great. Don't do it because your CrossFit coach says use this. You have to take matters under control and really do your homework. And for me to put my family on a program and to change the whole paradigm in my office and to work with physicians and healthcare practitioners around the country, you have to do your homework. You have to clean out the garbage, just like changing your oil filter in your car, which none of us think twice of. When the gentleman picks it up and it's dripping with gunk, you replace that oil filter faster than you can tell him to do it, and you want to replenish it with a good air filter. That phrase, you are what you eat, I don't believe. I don't believe that you are what you eat. You are what you absorb. I see people all the time that eat very, very, very well, and they're so sick, measurably sick. They feel sick. It's because their inside has been damaged by toxins, by poisons, by diet foods, by synthetic chemicals, by certain drugs, certain medications, and many antibiotics. They destroy the microvilli, the little hairs in our gut that's responsible for pulling the nutrition out of the food. You can chomp on broccoli all day long, and you're not going to get the nutrition if your gut is not absorbing it. So you've got to cleanse. And when I say cleanse, don't be frightened, okay? You're not sitting on the throne all day long, okay? It's a molecular cleanse, a deep cellular cleanse. Now, Oz used to laugh at people who cleanse. He used to make fun of it 8, 9 years ago. And now almost at least once a week, sometimes more, they talk about cleaning the body out. Why? Because the science and data doesn't lie. We can prove, and that's what I get to use in my office, testing that shows if someone's getting healthy or not, if we're able to clean out those cells. And I'm talking about fat-soluble toxins. I'm talking about metabolic waste, not water-soluble toxins. People think, oh, I'm going to eat well and I'm going to juice and it's going to get rid of the toxins. Well, it's true. It gets rid of water-soluble toxins, but it doesn't get rid of the bad fat-soluble toxins that are lodged in our fat that make us sick. And this is the program I want to tell you that I use. If you have a company that you believe is good, that you believe doesn't use any synthetic chemicals, that uses the highest grade protein, and that will tell you where they source their minerals and their protein from, and the company's transparent enough, then use it. This is not the only good company. In my opinion, I haven't seen any better science or any company with more integrity than this one. This is why I choose to use this. Doesn't mean you have to. This is about education. This is the 30-day fat burn weight loss system. And I always hesitate to call it a weight loss system. We use it to get people healthy. And a side effect is people release a lot of fat, sometimes very quickly, and sometimes at a moderate pace. But they lose that fat, they release that fat, and it stays off by cleaning the body. And you're not depriving your body of anything. Most cleanses out there, okay, this is called the Cleanse for Life. It's a molecular cleanse, not a colon cleanse. Most cleanses out there deprive the body of nutrition, which is very dangerous. It causes muscle atrophy. No one wants to do that. No athlete wants to do a cleanse because they think they're going to lose muscle. This is very different. In fact, with our athletes, I'll show you in a second, they gain lean muscle mass from this. Doing a 2-day cleanse, if you do a 2-day cleanse, and those of you on this call, on this webinar that have, you know you've had more energy than you know what to do with after doing a cleanse for 2 days, after you start getting rid of that garbage, okay? This body nourishes and floods every cell in your body from the inside, okay? It's like taking a shower of nutrition on the inside. Powerful, powerful. You know, Isagenix, on every level, that's the company, has done things right on every single level. And I got to tell you this, that the science is just paramount. But this product right here, consuming 2 to 4 ounces of Cleanse for Life is just equivalent to just like consuming 14 to 20 servings of fresh vegetables. And Isagenix was very smart. The Chinese, Japanese have been using these herbs and roots and minerals for thousands and thousands of years. Isagenix went to Mother Nature to get them, and they found a way to put it in a bottle. Because if they could put it in a bottle, we can put it in our mouths. And all you have to do is put it in your mouth, and it works. It works all the time. The second most important ingredient in this program is called the Ionic Supreme. Ionic Supreme is what John Anderson calls his crown jewel. It is the most nutrient-dense supplement with over 200 adaptogens. And something that's called adaptogenic works like this. It's like a Norton antiviral software program. You plug in or you run Norton antivirus in your computer, it rummages through your computer and defrags and gets rid of all the viruses. Excuse me. That's exactly what Ionix does in your body. When you wake up in the morning, if you take 8 ounces of this, it's like rocket fuel for your body. And if you're tired and you're ready to go to bed, you drink that, you'll sleep like a baby. It knows if you're agitated, if you're anxious, if you're excited, if you're jittery, it brings you down to that homeostasis. And if you're tired and sluggish through the day, it actually lifts you back up. That's why they call it adaptogenic. Powerful. It repairs the body from stress. Those of you that work out, those of you that are athletes, I will tell you, you don't feel the recovery period. Your recovery is a lot more comfortable taking this. And try this. Do it some days and don't do it other days, and you will definitively see this. All of our athletes say the same thing. And last but not least is the most powerful product that I believe that they have. And this is the protein. It is 24 or 36 grams of the highest level, grade level 7 protein, undenatured whey protein. Now let me tell you something. When a company won't tell you where they source their protein from, run. Okay? If you think that the source of the protein has nothing to do with your health, then take whatever, is the cheapest. But if you care and you will go by science, we can actually aspirate cells and we can see the same chemicals, the same hormone steroids, antibiotics, the same garbage that they feed most cows ends up in your cells. The protein comes from grass-fed cows from New Zealand. It's a grade level 7. Most protein from the United States, 99% of it is a grade level 2. Cat and dog food is a grade level 1. This is the highest grade protein. Okay? Undenatured means you're getting almost all of the nutritional value from the whey. Okay? They don't use high temperatures. They don't use acids and salts to denature the protein. Why do companies do that? Because they get more yield. They get more product. There's more of a margin. It's oxidized. They can sell more at a cheaper rate and make more of a profit. That's why they do it. Okay? There's over 90 essential nutrients in this protein. There's a superior amino acid complex. The design of the amino acid complex has everything to do with how anabolic, meaning how likely that undenatured whey is going to become lean muscle. There's a high yield. You can't help but build lean muscle mass from this. It's enzyme activated. It's all organic and naturally sourced. Powerful. So here's the fast food analogy. 1,800 calories in this Big Mac meal, and you're going to be a big Burger King meal, and you're going to be hungry a half hour, an hour later, versus 240 calories of an isoline shake that's going to fill you up. And a lot of people say, well, wait a second, this is all great, and I believe you, and I see the science, but I can't afford. I know how expensive it is to be healthy. Let me show you this. People spend $22 to $27 a day. They don't realize it on food. They go get a latte, which is $6. They go to get a breakfast, an Egg McMuffin, a bagel and cream cheese, a coffee, and an orange juice, which ends up being $6, $7. And then lunch, a salad with chicken or tuna or can be anywhere from $8 to $13. Okay? You're talking a full meal for $2.75. And if it's the higher protein, around $3. Everybody can afford to do this. The problem is the dieting industry is a $50 billion annual industry with a 98% failure rate. And this is why. When the toxin comes into the body, the liver metabolizes that toxin. It sends the toxin to the kidney gets rid of it. But if you take a sponge and you saturate that sponge with as much fluid as that liver can take or can absorb, there's no more water that can be absorbed into that sponge. When your liver is detoxing every millisecond of the day, all the poisons and toxins and horrible chemicals in the food to make us healthy, it can't keep up. So there's what's called spillage. And that toxin can't get to the kidney. It spills into the blood. The brain says, wait a second, these toxins in the blood are going to make me sick. I send a message to the liver. The liver makes more fat. And that's where the toxins end up in our fat. And this is what Newsweek magazine did a whole article on showing us where these fat-soluble toxins and metabolic waste live. They live in our fat cells. And the problem is that most diets that people go on are a caloric restrictive diet. Any program where you restrict your calories, you're going to lose fat. But where did those toxins go? There's a reason why those toxins are in your fat, because if they're in your blood, it's too dangerous and you can die. So when Jenny looks great, she loses all this weight on XYZ diet. Look at her 3 months later, 2 months later, 4 months later. She's not only gained all the weight back, she's bigger. It's called rebound, and that happens 98% of the time because your body made more fat because the toxins went back into the blood. It's a way that your body's keeping you alive. But when you do a molecular cleanse, okay, a cellular cleanse, a real cellular cleanse, you don't go after the fat, you go after the metabolic waste, and the fat is released very efficiently. Okay, the numbers that we see can be astounding. Okay, how much fat that people lose, and there have been people that said, look, that's so dangerous to lose all that fat. Well, they're right and they're wrong. It's dangerous to lose a lot of fat if you're starving your body. Very dangerous. But every day you're flooding your body with nutrition, it's getting rid of the garbage. And you're taking the Cleanse for Life, which chelates the body and pulls the mercury and the metals in the metabolic waste out of those cells. That's why this is far different. It is not a diet. It's a lifestyle. And I told you I like science before, and we're going to be winding down in a few minutes here. I like science. There was an independent study done at UIC, third party, and they published a study in Journal of Clinical Nutrition and Metabolism. And they compared people eating a heart-healthy diet to people eating the Isagenix on the Isagenix 30-day program. And what they found was astonishing, okay? You know, when you go to a medical doctor and you have some problem, whether you have high blood pressure or cholesterol, the doctor wants to put you, most doctors put you on the heart-healthy diet. That's why they compared this study to it. Isagenix was found to have 56% more weight loss than people eating healthy, the heart-healthy diet. Isagenix 30-day, the people that were on the Isagenix 30-day were found to have 47% more fat loss than people on a heart-healthy diet. And here's the kicker. This is why it's so easy to talk to the medical community and healthcare providers, because they're driven by science too. The people that went on the 30-day Isagenix system, okay, had twice as much visceral fat loss. The visceral fat loss is the fat that kills us. It literally, if you take one hand and put it around your fist, your other hand, and squeeze that fist, and imagine your heart, try to pump your fist there. That's what happens with visceral fat. That's what it does to your organs. Okay? There was twice the reduction of visceral fat on the Isagenix program than people eating healthy, not people eating McDonald's. This is huge. Here's an MRI that was published. The white inside A, this is an abdominal cavity, an axial view of an MRI. All that white is visceral fat versus B, the diminishment of visceral fat after the Isagenix 30-day. How powerful is that? In fact, the science that this company keeps developing is just incredible. One of the largest scientific conferences in the world gave Isagenix a high award at one of the conferences in Boston last year. Okay, that's the attention to detail that they're doing. That's the level that they're playing at. And I love it because we work with athletes on a regular basis. And when athletes hear the word cleanse, watch their pupils. Their pupils get very, very small. They get scared. Their heart rate increases. They think about losing lean muscle mass because most cleanses do that. When you deprive the body, your body eats the muscle to stay alive. With this cleanse, it's very different. So Dr. Michael Colgan, world-renowned researcher, okay, has the Colgan Institute, and he's worked with 11,000 athletes, professional Olympic athletes in this time, and they took triathletes under 10% body fat, okay? They put them on the Isagenix 30-day system, and they found that they lost an average of 4.2 pounds, pretty impressive. They decreased their body fat by 3%, pretty impressive. Okay, because they were under 10% to begin with. And here's the kicker. They gained almost 3% more lean muscle mass. How is this possible? Well, if you draw a circle on a piece of paper right now and draw a line through the middle of that circle, and 50% of that circle is going to be your cell, is filled up with gunk and garbage. You only have 50% surface area for oxygen and nutrition to drive that cell. So if you clean out the garbage, it stands to reason you have much more surface area for oxygen and nutrition to allow that cell to work properly. Our bodies are made up of cells. That's the fundamental basis of life. And that is why the most elite athletes in the world are talking about Isagenix, and they get paid nothing to do so. It's one of the only companies that will not pay any athlete to talk about them. Why? Because they have the utmost integrity. These athletes talk about Isagenix, excuse me, non-stop, and they don't get paid to do that. Powerful. Here's our own Lisa Jackson. This woman actually is a professional figure model that trains Lisa, my spouse and myself. JJ Burden, Paul Anthony right there. These are elite athletes. CrossFit champion Yuri Hansen, world CrossFit champion, only puts Isagenix in his body. Powerful. Here we go from the World Series just now, Jeremy. Powerful, powerful. These are the healthy aging program that Isagenix has. David, he looks phenomenal. Carol and Lois, age 66, looks phenomenal. Joyce is 67. These are real people. I know these people. And Leanne, what an amazing transformation Leanne had. Excuse me. That's what happens when I talk for over an hour. Their before and afters are just very, very telling. So literally, you can invest and make a choice to do something different now, or you can stay on the path that you're on. And it's not, again, this is not about me convincing anybody. We have a crew and a team of people and a company full of people that flies around this country and flies around 14 other countries now, educating people on there's a different way. There's a better way that's been proven. You can invest in your health now, or you can pay for it later. And again, if you have a program that you believe in, just do your research. And if you're convinced, stay on it. Absolutely. But how do you start? If you want to make that change, how do you actually begin? Well, decide which 2 meals a day you're going to replace with the highest nutritional value, the best food on the planet, the Isagenix food. Most people say lunch and dinner, or I'm sorry, lunch and breakfast. Fine, you can replace dinner and breakfast if you want. Just choose 2 meals. And for that other meal, have a healthy meal, okay? Next, decide what do you spend a day on those meals. And again, most people breakfast and lunch. If you spend $22 a day, if you spend $27 a day, if you spend $18 a day, figure out what that is and reallocate that money. You're not spending any more money on any other program. Instead of getting that latte, instead of going to Burger King, instead of going to Dunkin' Donuts, okay, put that money in a system, okay, for $20 a day, and you can get healthy based on real science, okay? You can get on a system for $13 a day. So when people say I can't afford to be healthy, but I find out they're spending $23 a day on food that's making them sicker and sicker and sicker, once they see that, they turn around and they know they have different options. Okay, and this isn't every day for the rest of your life. This is for a month. Or if your goal is to lose 60 pounds and you might do it for 2 months, or your goal is to lose 30 pounds, you might do it for a month or 6 weeks, whatever. And then you get on maintenance. And maintenance can be one shake a day, $2.75, or it could be shake and cleanse for, $3.50. I mean, you get to choose. There's so many options. But for $20 a day, $13 a day for 30 days to get healthier than you've ever been, to me, it's a no-brainer. And for the people that we've been able to help, they wish they started this sooner. So how do I start? So we've all heard of Costco, BJ's, Sam's Club. They're a wholesale food club. Well, Isagenix operates the same way. You get an account at wholesale for $29 for the year. Costco membership is $55. You get a wholesale membership for the entire year, and you buy all of these products at wholesale. And then you choose your pack. If you want to get onto the weight loss system, there's the pack, the energy and performance, which we have almost all of our athletes start in that pack, healthy aging and telomere support. All of these you can get with Product B. You get to decide. You get to decide to take this information and think about it, to do something or not do something about it. I appreciate all of you on this webinar tonight. I really do. Get back with the person that recommended you come on this webinar. Talk to them. Ask them your questions. Get your questions answered. And now you know you have some different choices. And I'm so happy to be able to present to you tonight. We're going to be putting up another schedule for next week. We do 3 or 4 of these a week now for people all over the United States and now in 14 countries on this very webinar. So I really appreciate your time, and get back with the person that invited you. Thank you so much.